Welcome to the Apostate Seminary. I am Phineas 12-Gauge, and this is the place where I may have been recording the last two episodes without my microphone and instead recording it on my laptop, because that's the kind of professionalism you can expect out of this. So today I will be talking about some made-up bullshit, so let's just get to that, because answers in Genesis and Living Waters are too goddamn cowardly to answer my fucking questions. Genesis 6:1. And it happened, when humankind began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that God's sons saw the daughters of humankind were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they choose. Because when you're God's kid, you just reach out and grab them by the pussy. They just let you do it, because God has Donald Trump's level of respect for the women folk. And God said, My spirit will not remain in humankind forever, since he is indeed flesh, yet his days will be 120 years. Which is why the oldest living human on record is Jean Calment from Arles, France, and I'm sure I ruined all those words, at 122 years. So take that, God, you punk. Also, global life expectancy is it ranges from 69 to 74 for humans, depending on gender, according to the WHO. And the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God had sexual relations with the daughters of humankind and had children by them. But they didn't with the Glibberks, because the Bible makes no claim about Glibberks. I made them up and they're not real, and the Nephilim are racist against other imaginary creatures. They were the mighty men, who were from ancient times, famous men. I don't know what famous men they're talking about, but I've decided that it's Perseus, Odysseus, and Heracles. And God saw that the wickedness of humankind was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Which, let's not forget, as we learned previously, all of that evil in our hearts continually is a result of us becoming like God. And God was sorry that he made humankind on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. God said, I will destroy humankind, whom I have created from the face of the earth, humankind, along with animals, crawling creatures, and flying creatures of the sky, for I am sorry that I made them, because God don't make no junk. But Noah found favor in sight of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah, starting in chapter 6, verse 9, where it takes a hard right turn into Noah-based exposition. So, Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. Noah walked with God, which didn't happen anymore literally, so that's all of a sudden a metaphor unless God left us on red for like 1,500 years, according to this timeline I found on Wikipedia, and now the motherfucker wants to booty call us. Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence, because, again, we had become like God. God saw the earth, and look, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. According to BibleRef.com, this weirdly stated verse just means that people had gotten all sinny. And God said to Noah, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And look, I will destroy them with the earth. Make a box-shaped vessel of gopher wood. Okay, so 2 things about this half of 6:14. The first is that according to our text, the word used is teba, which is thought to be a loan word from Egyptian that means a box chest or sarcophagus, which is very barge-like. Someone tell Ken Ham. In addition to that, in the Septuagint and Greek New Testament, so the Greek manuscripts, it uses the word kibotos, which means box-shaped, and there's a handful of places where they use ploion for boat. The second thing is that it seems as though this is the singular use of gopher wood. So I'm assuming that it is a wood made of gophers and people sent to retrieve things. ChristianAnswers.net posits that gopher wood just doesn't exist anymore because we don't know where the ark was built, and so we can't translate the name of the wood. This is similar to my thought, which is that gopher wood doesn't exist because if you substituted gopher wood for unobtainium and literal gophers, this story would be just as historically accurate. Although they do suggest that it could be a process or a fuck-up of translation for pitch, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because as God continued, you are to make rooms in the vessel and cover it inside and outside with pitch. And this is how you are to make it. The length of the vessel is to be 517 feet, its breadth 86 feet, and its height 52 feet. So the Bible actually says 300 cubits by 50 cubits by 30 cubits. which according to AIG is 500 feet by 83 by 50. So our text is a little longer than AIG in the 20-inch cubit, but that's like Tinkerbell's wings being a little too big compared to the original Barry. So who really gives a shit? If you don't clap, she'll die. And you are to make a roof in the vessel, and you are to finish it 21 inches above, and you are to set the door of the vessel on its side. You are to make it with lower, second, and third levels, which with our current measurements is a little over 2 Yao Mings per floor at around 17 feet, so pretty tall. And as for me, look, I am bringing a flood of waters on the earth to destroy all flesh having the breath of life from under the sky. The breath of life because life depends solely on conception. Everything that is on the earth will die. As God is mercy, God is love, God came snow into existence from above. But I will establish my covenant with you. You are to come into this vessel, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Of every living thing of all flesh, you are to bring 2 of every sort into the vessel, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the flying creatures after their kind, of the animals after their kind, and of every crawling creature of the ground after their kind, 2 of every sort shall come to you to keep them alive. And as for you, take for yourself all the kinds of food that are eaten, and gather it to yourself, and it will be food for you and for them. Thus Noah did, according to all that God commanded him, so he did. So I found an article in Business Insider that claims the ark would have floated with 70,000 animals in it. And they based that on the fact that there are apparently 35,000 animal species at that time, and they, a group of master's students from the Leicester University Physics and Astronomy Department, were surprised to find it would float because, to quote Thomas Morris, you don't think of the Bible necessarily as a scientifically accurate source of information. There's a problem with their math, though. It was based on 2 of every animal, but that's not quite what we're dealing with. Also, they use Cypress for it, so ChristianAnswers.net thinks they can go fuck themselves. So then is chapter 6. Moral of the story, God don't make no junk, except for everything that one time, and Genesis 7:2 really fucks these kids' math up. Chapter 7. And the Lord said to Noah, Come with all of your household into the vessel, for I have seen your righteousness before me in this generation. Talking about some crazy good coordination here. Nope. Sorry, not that sort of come into this vessel. I got excited. You shall take 7 pairs of every clean animal with you, the male and his female. Of the animals that are not clean, take 2, the male and his female. And, come in them? Sorry, no, I'm still excited. This is where the math of our world-weary college students gets a little wacky, because they did the math for 2 of each animal prescribed in 6:20 and 21, not the 7 pairs of clean and 1 of the dirty, nasty, filthy come in the vessel kind. I ran into a problem when trying to figure this out, though, because everyone tries so desperately to reduce the number. It seems everyone either A, listened super hard to the math of our Leicester kids, or B, invented the concept of kinds damn near out of whole cloth. The closest I could get to what they mean by a kind of animal is just the family of the animal. So for cat, it would be the Felidae family. Except AIG fucks this up by referring to them as the cat family. And there's a whole thing where someone invented a field of what, as far as I can tell, is pseudoscience called baraminology to study what the kinds are because science. And it seems to just be shit they made up. It's almost Aristotelian, the way he would send his students out and they would bring things back and he would just kind of line them up and look at them. But because the Bible is the horniest book ever written, it's kind of based a lot on fucking. If 2 things can breed, they're considered of the same kind as a shorthand, although Answers in Genesis claims there's more that goes into it, but since they're making it up, I really doubt it. Thanks to this, they get down to the 30s for different species that they claim Noah put on the ark, because apologetics isn't for explaining a religion, it's there for inventing bullshit to trick people out of leaving it. So using real numbers from English people, there were 70,000. And if we assume conservatively that 2/3 of that were unclean, we get around 26,000 clean ones. Now, if we multiply that by 3 to arrive at the number of animals not currently accounted for, we get 78,000, and if we add the original pair to the 6 that we just mathed into existence, we get 104,000, plus the 44,000 unclean animals, and we're at 148,000 animals. Now, the math that the English kids used was that a sheep is the average animal size, and that a sheep on average weighs 23.47 kilograms. Since the ark could, according to their math as reported in the Smithsonian, hold 50.54 million kilograms of sheep, The 2,440,880 kilograms of sheep that we're taking as our average may not seem like much, but hold on to that number because it's going to come up again and it's going to add up. So on to Genesis 7:3. Also of the clean flying creatures of the sky, 7 pairs, a male and a female, and of all the unclean flying creatures, 1 pair, a male and a female, to preserve their offspring on the surface of all the earth. In 7 days I will cause it to rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Every living thing that I have made I will destroy from the surface of the ground. So, okay, that number, the 2,440,880 number, it rained for 40 days, and we're still using these sexy fucking sheep. So let's crunch a few million numbers. According to Smiling Tree Farm and their absolutely adorable website, a sheep eats 2.5 to 3% of its weight per day, going on the low end because this is a flood boat, not a sheep buffet, so we're packing light. 2.5% of a 23.4 kilogram sheep is 0.585 kilograms of feed a day, or by weight of the total, it's 61,022 kilograms per day. Times 40, this equals the weight of our sheep, 2,440,880, because 2.5% times 40 days is 100% of the weight of our sheep. So now we are at 2,440,880 times 2 for 4,881,760 kilograms. So we have 45,658,240 kilograms of water to displace before we get our ass as Archimedes. Luckily, that's all the time and people didn't need to eat. So let's carry on. Noah did everything that the Lord commanded him, Genesis 7:5. Genesis 7:6. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of the waters came on to the earth, killing Methuselah. Maybe. Methuselah was still alive, and according to the Genesis Patriarch's timeline I found on Wikipedia, his name can be translated as when he dies it comes. So I don't know which is the cause and which is the effect. Did Methuselah presage the flood? Did he drown? Asking Googles, I want it to be after. I want him to be a wizened little old Jewish Obi-Wan on a rock someplace, and then he vanishes like a Force ghost. But according to answers in Genesis, because Derek what keeps coming up, and fuck Ken Ham, so I'm going to put them through their paces, Methuselah, whose name could be translated man of the dart or man of the sword, could mean more and contains the word death. Strong's says that it's man of a dart. And then AIG goes on to explain some, I think, questionable etymology. And when asked when Methuselah died during the year he did, that they hope you're inspired to look into the Bible more. And the Institute for Creation Research says, who knows, which is fun. Genesis 7:7. Noah went into the vessel with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives because of the waters of the flood. Clean animals, animals that are not clean, flying creatures, which is a bit of a problem for me because as we'll learn later, some flying animals are clean, some aren't, and everything that crawls on the ground went by pairs to Noah into the vessel, male and female, as God commanded Noah. It happened after the 7 days that the waters of the flood came on the earth. I'm exempting the 7 days from our running total because they easily could have stored the food for waiting for the waters to come outside of the ark. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on the same day all the fountains of the great deep were burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were opened. The rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So for this, we are turning to Southern Methodist University, who does all the math and very helpfully points out that God did it is not scientific, and, quote, the God did it claim is a non-hypothetical truth which cannot be tested. At that point, you leave science behind, end quote. They do make the clarification that they're not saying that they're trying to debunk the Bible with these numbers, but they are trying to debunk the claim that every word in the Bible is true. I don't have an issue with the idea that there is true stuff in the Bible, so I'm willing to meet them at God did it isn't science, and the Bible isn't literal truth throughout, but I'm not willing to go any further. According to these people at SMU, the whole atmosphere has 1 inch worth of rain in it. That's 13,000 kilometers cubed of water. That is if all the moisture in the atmosphere dumped out at the same time. Now, they use the fact that all of the mountains were covered, although it doesn't say that for another 7 verses. We're doing this here to get it out of the way ahead of time. We have enough running math going on right now. And taking into account that Everest is 8.86 kilometers high, so the claim they're evaluating is that the water is 8.86 kilometers high. This, they say, and I'm willing to take their word for it, is 4.5 billion kilometers cubed of water volume, which is 3.25 times the amount of water in the ocean. It's also, according to my calculator, a smidge over 346,000 times the amount of water currently in the atmosphere, which is a lot of extra moisture being dumped into the system. So when examining the question of where that water was stored, they reckon it would occupy a cube 1,650 kilometers on each side. They then point out that this is 1/8 of the Earth's radius, and that we would have fucking noticed that shit. That's not to mention the fact that if you drop that much water out of the sky, there's no way that the Ark would have stayed afloat without invoking magic. If you take 40 days and times it by 24 hours a day, you get 960 hours, which we divide into our 8,600 meters. They use 8.8 kilometers on this one because the mountains were covered by 20 some odd feet. But I want to use the same amount of kilometers because I've used a lot of different numbers. And the difference we end up with is 0.05 meters per hour, so it's kind of a semantic point anyway. Because you get around 29 feet of rainfall an hour, which is just over 3.75 Yao Mings. So the perspective for me on this is I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Oregon, which is southeast Portland. A place so rainy. Anna Kendrick said it was like being in a hostage situation and didn't get the problem with that was people are from Portland, so we didn't think she were talking about our co-stars. We have Doc Martens and North Face as self-defense against the weather. I was just talking to a friend of mine about how you can tell who's from here from who has Columbia and North Face and who has an umbrella. I tell people I learned to swim to cope with the weather, and I honestly am not sure if people believe me or not when they're not from here, because I don't get a that's a bad joke reaction. I don't get a that's clearly a joke reaction. I was alive for and lived just a couple miles from the Clackamas River during the 1996 flood that took out parts of the city, and we got 7 inches a day for 2 weeks, which was enough flooding to cause $27 million in damages in Portland and Salem, which is areas 45 miles apart. Clear blue skies scared the shit out of me because I have Chicken Little living in my brain, and he starts screaming that the sky is falling because there's no clouds holding it up. I have experienced rainfall, and the record for rainfall in Portland was set at 0.78 inches on a rainy Sunday in September 2019, which broke the record of 0.57 inches from 1955. 29 feet an hour is completely unimaginable. And I know I went a little heavy on that, but for real, this is the sort of thing that you would only write if you were a Bronze Age wise man who didn't know anything about anything. So yeah, it would wreck your car, and I'd be willing to bet it would melt the Ark, never mind waterlog it so hard that you wouldn't be able to get it to float. Genesis 7:13. In the same day Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with him entered into the vessel, eating about 4 pounds of food per day, and that is 8 times 4 times 40 for a total of 1,280 pounds of food, or 580 kilograms, to bring our available weight on the Ark to 45,657,658 before we are doomed to sink. They, and every wild animal after its kind, and every tame animal after their kind, every creature that crawls on the earth after its kind, and every flying creature after its kind, everything with wings, they went to Noah into the vessel by pairs of all flesh with the breath of life in them. Because life begins at conception. It has nothing to do with breath. Those who went in male and female of all flesh as God commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. The flood was 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and lifted up the vessel at a rate of 3 3/4 Yao Ming an hour, or just under the second place of rainfall for Portland, Oregon, a minute. And it was lifted up above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the vessel floated on the surface of the waters, which means it would have had to have withstand said 3 3/4 Yao Ming an hour pummeling into its deck, unless we grant a magic bubble of some kind, which we don't, because even taking this book at face value, it hasn't told us there is one. And the waters rose very high on the earth, and all the high mountains that were under the whole sky were covered. The waters rose and covered the highest mountains to a depth of more than 26 feet, which sounds problematic. I have a hard time granting any kind of charity to that, which I try to do most of the time, because it sounds like it's saying the mountains are 26 feet tall, but I'm going to just go ahead and grant the benefit of the doubt in saying that they were covered plus 26 feet. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, flying creatures and tame animals and wild animals and every creature that crawls on the earth, and all humankind, including maybe he who shall die when death time comes. All in whose nostrils breathed the breath of life from conception of all that was on dry land died. Every living thing was destroyed that was on the surface of the ground, including people, animals, crawling creatures, and flying creatures of the sky. They were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the vessel. The waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. So, that's chapter 7. Fuck math. There will be more next time, because I have to figure out how much food the sheep and people needed for that 150 days before we move on to the rest of the food the sheep and people needed when the waters retracted. So there will be more math next time. And the moral of the story is, God don't make no junk. Except that one time where he made everything. So that's all there is for this lesson. The email is poweredbyapostasy@gmail.com. My Twitter is the letter X, Essential Panda, and the website, as it is pbapostasy.libsyn.com. Stay safe, stay masked,